Last week, I left you hanging on a really interesting question. Why are the symptoms of agitation, of hyperactivity, treated by amphetamines? Now, this doesn't seem to make intuitive sense. If you give someone who's agitated speed, normally they should get worse. So this week I'm going to tell you how there are two different processes that can cause agitation in people. With people on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, you have some classical strategies that are commonly referred to as self-stimulation. Things like flapping, rocking, humming, sometimes facial or body tics. These are all ways to evacuate excess information, excess emotional or sensory information in the nervous system. And if you startle someone, anyone including neurotypicals, it's likely that they'll scream. If you pump enough information, if you blast enough information to someone, it has to come out. It has to be released. And the human nervous system, the classical methods for that are laughter, crying, screaming, and this is all a family of methods to evacuate excess stress. Stress will cause emotional responses, and these emotional responses will cause physical manifestations. Now, with training, we can learn to reduce the intensity of the physical response and reduce, by the same process, the intensity of the emotions. And if needed, we can even eliminate the emotional response altogether. And how to do that specifically is the subject of next week's episode. However, in other cases, including the kind of agitation that's treated with amphetamines that we find in hyperactivity, it's actually the opposite process that's occurring. We can look at another condition that follows a similar process: depression. And depression, some signals are not making it properly to the area of the brain that's their target. And when this happens, you have one part of the brain that goes dark, and other parts of the brain will light up to compensate. In the case of depression, you will get increased sensations of sadness, of fatigue, sometimes even sensations of physical pain. To give you an idea of how subtle the sensory deprivation can be to cause these kinds of symptoms, you can look at a condition called seasonal affective disorder, which is a type of depression people get during wintertime. This is caused by certain wavelengths in light not making it to the surface during winter. Just a change in the colors in the available light will cause depression in some people. Instinctively, people with depression will often do things that are going to cause strong sensory or emotional responses in order to light up the parts of the brain that went dark. It goes from thrill-seeking behavior to self-mutilation, all the way to eating Marmite with a spoon. So in people with hyperactivity, giving them amphetamines is going to light up the parts of the brain that are dark, and that will quiet down the parts of the brain that are generating the agitation. The fact that some people with ADHD sometimes self-treat with exercise should not be a surprise. They often have excellent results with it. Contrary to any other period in history, we have a lifestyle where we are cut off from most of the information the body normally provides. We wear very soft clothes. We're never really hot or really cold, and when we are, it's never for too long. We don't get wet when it rains. We're never really hungry or thirsty. We're instructed to sit still most of the time, and when we are allowed to move, we're instructed to keep off the dirty ground. If we walk or run, it has to be on flat level surfaces so we don't hurt our ankles. If we run, it has to be with giant pillows strapped to our feet, which is what running shoes really are. So we're entirely disconnected of the information we should be getting about the relationship of our feet with the ground. If we exercise, it is restricted to specific movements that have to be executed with strict technique. Are you following me here? Now, we live in a world where we get certain levels of sensory intensity. The video games, loud music, some foods have very intense flavors, but mainly the world we live in places us in a situation of sensory deprivation. And we know that sensory needs seem to vary from person to person. But we've seen today that if the sensory needs of someone are not met, the nervous system can react very violently. Next week, we're going to go hands-on with this stuff. And I'll be giving you some tricks and techniques that you can start using and benefiting from right away.